Yaa family, you're tuning into the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio. Today we're going to continue the Reading the Book of Power series. This is going to be episode 12, and it's going to be We the Women Will by Yaa Asantewaa. It's a very short, it's a paragraph. So what I'm going to do is, of course, read the exposition, and then I'm going to read the paragraph, and then I'm going to reread and break it down, right? But of course, like I said, we're on KWAZ Radio, and so definitely check out the other programs like the Bitter Medicine Podcast, the Harsh Reality Podcast, and the Queen's Council. Anyway, let's go. I know my phone's blowing up. It's telling me that I'm on. And your phone should be blowing up too. It should be telling you that I'm on, so you should get inside. All right. So make sure you subscribe if you want to get your phone blown up as well when this regularly scheduled podcast comes through. All right. So, Yaa Asantewaa, We the Women Will. So I said, I wish I had more of Mama, but what more could be said? This is Gender Roles 101, right? So men are the primary protectors and secondary healers, and women are the primary healers and secondary protectors. However, when the men fail their primary role, the women step forward. This is basic, right? So this was Mama's cry, right? Men and women fought beside her. This wasn't hers. This victory wasn't hers, but she lives on as an example of African womanhood. She's another benchmark of the Sankofa. So I want you to understand. I mean, if you're not familiar with the history, right, or the Ourstory, right? Yaa Asantewaa. So the British come in. The British come to, I guess it's the Ashanti Kingdom, right? They although don't quote me. I forgot to look it up, right? But the British come through, and they beat the men, right? And so the men are like, okay, well, we done, right? And so Asantewaa was like, no, we're not done yet. We still got more fight left. And of course, British still win. But this is how it's supposed to be. And if you're familiar with, and of course, later in this book, you're going to see another reference to how when European enslavers came in and destroyed a village, and they came for the men, right? The women would try to free the men. And they would get caught too. A lot of women came to America by trying to attack, what would be like in, the caravans of people being enslaved. Trying to attack trade routes, trying to attack, the men being marched in chains. A lot of our mothers and grandmothers or great grandmothers, a lot of them came through because they were trying to stop this trade. So you have to, or not even trade, but this capture, this kidnapping. So that's something to also remember and recall, that a lot of our ancestors are brave. A lot of our ancestors did not sit down and like they continued the fight. They didn't turn the other cheek. You understand? So that's what I want you to do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read it first, and then I'm going to try to break it down. Right? So let's go. Now I see that some of you fear to go forward to fight for our Nesut. In the brave days of Osai Tutu, Okamfo Onokye, and Opuku Ware, chiefs would not sit down to see their Nesut taken away without firing a shot. No Eurasian could have dared to speak to chiefs of our African nation in the way the governor spoke to you this morning. Is it true that the bravery of our nation is no more? I cannot believe it. It cannot be. I must say this: if you, the men of our nation, will not go forward, then we will. We, the women, will. I shall call upon my fellow women. We will fight. We will fight until the last of us falls in the battlefields. All right. So, I know, right? See, the thing is, this is what I'm telling you about. This is why I'm telling you to get the Book of Power, okay? One of the original intentions of the Book of Power was to collect these kind of great speeches so that our people could read that with passion. This is the kind of thing, I mean, obviously if I had a daughter, maybe not a son, but if I had a daughter, well, even if he just changes the words a little, right? That's how it's supposed to be. You're supposed to, like rhetoric, good words, oratory is so powerful. I don't know if y'all felt it when I was reading that. But this is how a lot of the stuff in the book is. Real talk, I'm only breaking it down because, it's a podcast. But that's how you want people to do it. You want them to read it like that. So, obviously, I changed some words. Nesut would be king. right? She might have said king or she might not have said king. Because this is the other thing you have to understand. White boys change all the words. Because some of y'all be like, man, why don't you just quote them right? How am I going to quote somebody direct when it's a whole different language? You already get a translation. The only thing is that they translate it into terms that is good for the white man to listen to. You know? And even if you say, well, what about when you put some words in English? Yeah, okay, that's fine. But like English is already a translation. I'm gonna say, you know what I'm saying? It's already a translation. I'm only speaking to, like, I gotta translate my thoughts into words that you could understand, because those are the words that I want you to technically understand. Basically, it's like, it's complicated. All right, it's complicated. But me personally, like, it's for, and you writing for your descendants, right? You don't want them to look and say, oh, king and queen, and you want them to stay in that suit. You understand? Because you want them to understand that your goal is more so the African. If you want, you can say kinghood. The African kinghood, the African royalty. You want the African variant. Or the African version, because the African version is totally different. I tell y'all I got a coon for a relative, right? One of the coon relative, what he did, when I was younger, he had a bunch of books. I guess he was in college, by the time I was in high school or whatever, right? So he had some books that, like he gave me some books for the Haitian Revolution type stuff. That's the first time I saw Black Jacobins. But he also had this other book. I don't remember the name of it. It might have been the guy from Negritude who wrote it. I'm not too sure. But there was this poem where they were talking about, where it might be this Negritude guy was saying, Senghor, right? He was saying that the king in Africa and the king in Europe are totally different. The king in Europe, sitting up there, and he sends his generals, and he sends his knights, and does that war. But the king in Africa is on the front line of the battlefield. You understand? And because he's as good as the other ones. The king in Europe, he can't fight like his knight can, like his main knight can. He can't fight like his main general. And I understand that. You don't necessarily want to be. I understand you don't want to lose the leader, but the leader, but that's another thing that shapes the structure. There's another story inside of Africa, right? It comes out of Africa, ancient Africa. They would say even ancient Ethiopia. Okay. Where they're like, the way how they chose the king was he was the strongest person. He was the strongest of the tribe. And you might be like, well, strength is not everything. There's intelligence involved. Yeah, of course there is. But the main point is that the king is not going to be some chump, like in Europe, some pampered little chump. And this is why, again, you don't even want to put into the mindset the impression that, when we talk about a king, we're talking about somebody who sits behind and everybody else does everything, and there's a bunch of intrigue and scheming, and he can't defend himself. And no, when you're talking about African kinghood, you're talking about somebody who's out there, who doesn't just send people to war. They go to war themselves and come back with the glory, in a sense. I'm not gonna say Europe has no examples of that, okay? But I'm going to tell you that Africa has plenty of examples of that. That's what I'm trying to tell you, right? But anyway, so let's do the story. So she tells the whole story here, in a sense. She says, now I see that some of you fear to go forward to fight for our Nesu, right? So the British come in and they kidnap the Nesu. They kidnap, the king, the leader, and it's like, and that's the thing that is really the gist of it. At some point, you have to say to yourself, is our culture, is our political system more important than my life? See, this is actually communicating to you the African ethic. We were talking about this yesterday in the Urugu conversation, right? We were talking about the power of individualism. Individualism says, right, I should put my self-interest above the group interest. Or I should put my self-interest above the collective interest. Right? and actually, if you all remember this, like there, if you read the pro-black companion, right? There's this section called the 8 week proverbs or whatever, right? And there's this one person that's quoted that's not really famous, you know, and I just gave him, I just put him in this book. I might just pull it up, right? Because you're gonna notice, you're gonna be like, wait a second, there's this brother that's not even. So look, Ramesses. He's a radio host in America, an active UNIA ACL member. He sells homemade Pan-African flags and calls mass-produced Pan-African flags Chinese flags. He was somebody I met. You know, I put him next to Paul Robeson. You know, Ruth Shea is another one that's not too popular, but, you know, she's just a domestic worker. But the point is that, you know, you got to humble yourself and just meet people. This is a brother, I had an issue inside of my group. So I was an organizer, like I said, right? I was an organizer, and I was like, let me, you know, this brother's an elder, okay? So let me just ask his advice, you know, because we had a situation where two people were in a disagreement over something that happened. Basically, you know, the sister, and she was a brilliant sister, right? But the sister, she, like basically, oh, actually, remember Ani was there. Remember Ani gave, all right, I don't want to go too much detail. Remember Ani gave one member, offered one member a free ticket for an event, right? And the member declined because we were having a meeting, right? And so then this person said, let me get this ticket, because it's like, this ticket is priceless, right? And so the other member was a little bit like, what, you know? Now, of course, it's a little more complicated. I don't want to go into too much detail. But basically, you know, when we ran the story by this Ramesses guy, he says, look, a person who puts the interest of the individual before the interest of the group can be bought. Get rid of them. And I said, look, that's actually, like, that's it. Like he don't say it, like, you know, I have it twice in the book, I guess. He don't say it, but that's exactly what individualism is. You know, individualism is when you can put the interest of the individual ahead of the interest of the group. So now we go back to Yaa Asantewaa. The truth is that the British are no joke. You know, and I'm not going to say that you don't ever surrender. You understand? I'm not going to say you don't. I mean, there's such a thing as a tactical retreat. So I'm not going to tell you don't ever do a tactical retreat. You know, don't ever look out for your longevity, right? Because some battles you just don't win, right? And a general should tell you, look, man, you ain't going to win that. Real talk. You know? So and somebody might be at home and be like, you know, well, that probably means that Yaa Asantewaa should, maybe. I don't know. You know? Usually you fight to win. Real talk. I'm going to tell you that straight up. You know? Usually you have a tactical thing. I don't know. Maybe it's possible. But the other thing you have to know is that sometimes you don't know if you can win until you fight. So it's not necessarily 100% that if you've lost, that means you should have never fought. You know? Because the Haitian Revolution could have went either way if you don't know. You know, 12 years of fighting, that could go either way. A lot of it had to do with geography for you don't know. So it really could have went, the Mau Mau could have went either way. You understand? There was a war before, if you read this book, you scroll back, you see the Dessalines. Dessalines going to tell you about a whole nother country right before, like that fought against the French right before the Haitian Revolution, and they didn't win. They had everything. They had all the same ingredients as Haiti, but they didn't win. Jamaica, same thing. They just had, the Maroons could have won, but they didn't. You know, sometimes you just don't win. So, but you have to fight. So there's no judgment on whatever. That's how the world goes. But you also have to say to yourself, this right here is somebody saying, look, the group is important. My king or my Nesut was taken. And see, and look at this. In the brave days of Osai Tutu, Akomfo, Anokie, and Opuku Ware, chiefs would not sit down to see their Nesut taken away without firing a shot. You understand? She's like, look at our ancestral legacy. And this is the thing this is what I'm telling you guys sometimes, right? Osai Tutu, Akomfo, Anokie. Opukuru, Ware, right? These names can become eventually, right? If the account were to, have gone on, one of these could have been a natural, eventual. You understand? Eventually. That's how our people operate. We are really giving deference to our former Nesu and our ancestors. And our great people of the past. That's what a lot of spirituality is. You're giving deference to the great people of your past, the great civilizations of your past. A lot of times. You understand? And as that narrative goes through and through, it gets embellished a little. It gets embellished a little. Somehow, you no longer a creative individual, but you created the universe somehow. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes. But of course, that's going to take you, like if you don't understand that right now, it's going to take you a while to understand it. That's all I'm going to say. You understand? But what you got to do is research on that. But yeah, chiefs will not sit down and see their Nesu taken away without a shot. So no Eurasian could have dared to speak to chiefs of our African nation in the way the governor spoke to you this morning. So the white boy comes up and see, the thing is this is what it's about power. Power is something that you have to really, really seriously be about. And this is why I'm telling you, if you don't have this book, go get it. If you are listening to this podcast and you ain't shared it with nobody, go share it. You understand? If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Because the difference, I'm going to tell you this way, matter of fact. I'm going to tell you this way. If a Russian citizen goes up to Putin and says, Putin, you ain't shit. Right? You ain't shit. Go eat a dog. Or whatever. Right? The next day, that guy's somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Putin's like, oh, that sounds good. Good for you, man. Walks by, don't say a word. Right? Next day, that guy's, hanging from a tree or some shit. I don't know. Right? If Biden goes up, Putin, you ain't shit. Go eat a dog. Right? Putin's like, okay, I mean, shit, man, that's rude, man. You know what I mean? Like you're being rude. Or Putin's gonna say something back, be like, you ain't shit neither, Biden. And that's it. Like the way how power works. Like this is why power is the most important thing, because here you are. This is Africa. This is classical Africa, I would say, right? Or I guess I don't know if y'all call it pre-colonial or post-colonial. I mean, it's not like colonial Africa, right? This is colonial Africa. And this white boy walk up to a Nesu in a long-standing, powerful nation, and talks any which way, and takes him in front of his people, in front of the chiefs. He takes the king in front of the chiefs, and they don't even do nothing. And it's a shameful thing, but that's power. Sometimes y'all say, hey, man, how are you going to change people's religions? What? Ain't nobody worried about changing nobody's religion. What I'm telling you is that when you building institutions, right? When you building institutions and when you shutting down other people's institutions, people going to be like, well, okay. They're not going to fire a shot. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes, like for instance, what happened with some black folk were crying over this library. So the Muslims, I don't know if they're Muslims, to be honest, but basically there's this library in South Africa, and it was just burning. So some arsonists went through and burned this library, precious books from 500,000 years ago, right? 500 to 1,000 years ago. All right. Anyway, precious books. They burned the library, and nobody caught them. Anybody worried? I mean, and it depends on what group it were. I mean, I did say Muslims. I don't know if they're Muslims. I don't know. Right? But Muslims do that stuff. But that's what you have to understand, though. That if you are a powerful people, you can get away with that. Like you can literally get away with murder. In fact, this is the thing that happens in the world. The nation that you're in, if it got a death penalty, it gets away with murder. It tells you, no, you can't murder people. I can't. It has the monopoly on violence. That's what nations are. They got the monopoly on violence. And what you will see here is that while she's saying, hey, look, we got an African nation and we're supposed to take a shot, right? We're supposed to fire a shot. What the white boy is saying, no, I got the monopoly. You think you got the monopoly. I got the monopoly. You understand? I let you do stuff, but now that I don't want you to do that, I'm taking your chief. What you go? I'm taking you in that soup. What you chief's gonna do? You gonna sit down? You understand? So she said, is it true that bravery of our nation is no more? And see, because you got to be brave now. If you're going against power, you got to be brave. If you go stand up to Putin and you're in Russia, you got to be brave. You know what I mean? If you start saying some silly stuff about, Biden, you got to be brave. I mean, you got freedom of speech, but you can only take it so far. I'm telling you. Because they will look at you. They will investigate you. So and the thing is this, that a lot of people ain't brave. You know, a lot of people are brave. Oh, maybe you brave and then you no longer brave. But these white boys, I'm telling you, when they showed up, they probably showed up with an army. You know what I mean? You got, like, let's say this. You got, look at this image right here. You got the next suit. You got 16 chiefs sitting around him, right? Chiefs and they all got maybe 2 bodyguards each, right? Oh no, matter of fact, they only got like 5 bodyguards standing behind, spears and bows, right? Then the governor shows up with he fits into the building with 32 armed riflemen and 100 others and a big ass boat, on the shore with cannons or 3 boats with cannons. You understand? Now he says, look here, trouble is this, that you ain't doing enough. You ain't paying enough taxes, and I want, in fact, you right here, you going to jail. I'm taking you with me. And what's the chief gonna do? What are the chiefs gonna do? And of course, Yaa Asantewaa was sitting there like, wait, hold up a second, you talking to, this is the next suit. And of course the chiefs are like, wait, you don't understand. They got this boat that could blow up a forest. You understand? You have to get into a position where they show up and they park their boat next to your bigger boat. You understand? They show up with 100 soldiers and they got to walk through a line of 500. You understand? They go into your building with 32 and you got 64 or something. Like, you have to understand you got to be bigger and better than the next man. If you remember the speech, now I didn't read it to y'all here, but it's in the book of Power. Book of Power starts off with 3 fantastic speeches. One for Nzinga, one for Taharka, one for Nanny, right? The reason why I started off with those 3 is because I was like, look, I'm gonna give y'all some of this, and y'all might not catch it. Y'all might not catch the fundamental. So Taharka's gonna tell you one of the things that the main thing that sets you back is the fact that you are not militarily ahead of the cracker no more. Once upon a time you were. But the moment you fall behind in terms of your military, right? That's when you undid yourself. You got to understand power. And the thing is just that you can get right back there. It's easier now than ever. But you won't. I'm telling y'all yesterday, so like I said, you got to go listen to the other platforms, right? And so Bit of Medicine had a Shoot the Breeze episode yesterday, right? And he said something that was profound, right? The brother said, we don't really want to be responsible. And he was talking about like somebody asked him, why are we going for basketball? Like, why are we going for rapping instead of, why are we going to rapping even though we know it's not that successful? Or why are we going for this instead of, whatever. But he was like, look, man, when you think about it, whether it's, going to go play basketball, whether it's going to rap, whether it was going to even drug, whatever. I don't know. But the point is that you're not really responsible for anything. Like these are low responsibility occupations. All you got to do is perform well in a basketball game. That's a low. That's not a real man's responsibility. You know, all you got to do is sing over a track and listen to beats all day and rhyme words. That's not a real responsibility. The real responsibility is to making sure there's energy in the community. You know, make sure that there's power in the community. The lights are on. The real responsibilities are making sure that the water supply is clean. You understand? But you letting the white boy do that responsibility for you. You understand? The real responsibility is making sure that the military is on point, making sure that when the white boys show up, he don't say, "Oh, look at this chump. I'm gonna go chump them in their own house." Instead, he says, "Okay, hey, how you doing? Shake my hand. I mean, I'll shake your hand." That's the real responsibility. No even could have dared to speak to our chiefs in our African nation in the way the governor spoke to you this morning. He says, "True that bravery is no more of this nation." I cannot believe it. It cannot be. I must say this: if you, the men of our nation, will not go forward, then we will. We, the women, will. You understand? This is it too. I mean, here's the issue though. Here's the issue I'm gonna tell you about. Like the thing is that the men should not fail, but if the men do fail, right, and of course the women should join and try to fight as well. And this is like I said, this is African womanhood. This is an example of African womanhood. The reality is that if you do not keep the fight, if you lose this fight, the nation is lost. And of course, the nation as it is a facsimile of what it was. You know, these kingdoms, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head how big the Akan were at one point. But even the self-determination was lost. The British won in Ghana. It took Nkrumah later. But even so, the power that these people had and maintained for so many centuries is gone. You understand? And the thing is this, that it would have just been gone sooner if Yaa Asantewaa didn't fight. You understand? You have to fight for your people, but you also have to know that your culture is very important. And in fact, that's the next speech in this book, which is the one on Ma'at. Because this is something that you have to understand, that you have to put Ma'at. You have to put Ma'at, your African spirituality, your African culture, even above your own life. Okay? So I should call upon my fellow women. We will fight. We will fight until the last of us falls in the battlefield. Because there's no point in living if you don't have your culture anymore. You understand? What's the big point? And then here's the thing too, like if you listen to, make sure you listen to the Yurugu podcast. If you listen to that last podcast, it was a great conversation. It went a little longer than I expected, but it was a great conversation. So make sure you listen to it. But one thing you have to understand about this white boy is that he gives you a culture that's failing even him. It's a culture with loneliness, individualism, but so much competitiveness that you cannot really love anymore. He's giving you a loveless culture. A culture where suicide is something that young boys contemplate. You know how many times I talk to a young boy, like in a friendly way or whatever, right? But I talk to him and I'm like, and he's just like, man, I just want to kill myself. I just want to kill myself. You're like over what? He's like, I just want to kill myself. Like this is young people just want to kill themselves, and it's not even just black kids, white kids. White boys want to kill themselves. This is the culture that they want you to have it, and it's like, look, it's better to understand, look, I want better for myself, and I know I know my ancestors knew how to love. They knew how to bond. They knew how to give people self-importance, give people dignity. They knew how to cooperate instead of just compete. They knew how to put the group interest ahead of the individual interest. But this is what I want you to understand as well. Organization. In fact, the responsible does come into that word. I don't even know if it's in this glossary. But organization does entail you being responsible to other people. You understand? Organization does entail that you be responsible to other people. I'll probably have to check out the glossary. Let me see if this glossary got it. Let me see if I can get to this glossary. I know y'all saying, wait a second, this brother got his whole book. He got his whole book in PDF, but he ain't selling it. Anyway, let's see if, let me see if I got, this is the pro-black competitor. I don't got organization here. It might be another one in the Book of Power, but the point being that you want to look at that no mark. That's oh yeah, right here. So you look at that power. The ability to increase another's sense of responsibility and exact consequences. You know, that's power. You know, propaganda. Hold on a second. Like I said, you want to just get all these books for whatever. Propaganda, a war tactic to identify or misidentify targets, forces, and enemies, thus creating or destroying a warrior consciousness and aiding or harming a war effort. You know, I mean, like other people say, you know, this is what Christianity is. War tactic to identify or misidentify your forces and enemies. Who are your brothers in Christianity? You know, just like with socialism, who's your brothers? Brothers are the proletariat. Proletariat are who? White. Right? The Christianity, who's your brother? White. You know, the enemy, the governor is the Christian. He's a brother of some of these chiefs. You understand? Creating and destroying a warrior consciousness. Your warrior consciousness is telling you, fight. See, Yaa Asantewaa, she wasn't into that. You understand? Yaa Asantewaa was like, hey, look, man, my warrior consciousness is telling me I need to fight these people. Right? But in propaganda, what it does is that it tells you, oh, no. These are your brothers. Oh, they're just arresting the guy. You know, the chief didn't want to pay taxes. You understand? Well, I hope y'all understand. That would be this week's podcast. I hope y'all understand. But this is it though. You know, this so much in it. You see the individual. This is just captured. As long as you build up your ideology, right? As long as you inform yourself, because that's the thing I want to tell people too. If you don't read the Book of Power, chances are you're gonna be illiterate. You know what I'm saying? By illiterate, I mean you might be able to put together. You might be able to read, but you gotta read to understand the individualism, right? Or versus the let's say collectivism. I don't know, whatever word you want to use. But the anti-individuals, the putting the group interest ahead of the individual interest. You can't see that from just reading the paragraph. You don't know that she's saying, look, organization is very important. And an organization involves protecting your leadership. You understand? Protecting and defending your leadership and the ways of your people or the ways of your organization. You might not see that. You might just say, "Oh, this is a great quote," and you know, somebody like if you in feminist ideology, you'd be like, "Well, see, there you go. Women are, you know, like no." There's so much information packed into everything that you read, and you gotta get the ideology. You got to get ideological foundation to be able to read it. That's really the point. But either way, you know, I appreciate everybody for listening. I appreciate everybody who purchased the book. I appreciate everybody who read the book or who's reading through the book. I got many compliments on the book, but I want y'all to put some reviews on Amazon. You know? I want y'all to put some reviews on Amazon so that other people can say, you know what? That's a book I want to get too. Because I'm going to be honest with you, a lot of people are discouraged from the price tag. They're discouraged. But when they read the book, they're like, damn, you sold it for too cheap. You sold it for too cheap. You're giving this thing away. We're talking about power. You're not getting this anywhere else. You might get somebody, you might get a feminist quoting Yaa Asantewaa and like, well, you see, why the black man can't, you might get that. You might get the quote, and then it's going to be totally out of context. Somebody's going to give it to you, and it's going to be totally out of context. This is telling you, men are primary protectors, women are primary healers. You understand? And the individual, it all goes together. So I hope you take that with you, and of course I appreciate your listening. Please drop some likes, drop some follows, share the video, and of course I'll talk to you another week. Shemi Hotep, Uncle John, Seneb Neb, Amen, Ma'at, Dua Necha.